All right, hey everybody, welcome to the call. Today we're talking about believe, and this is also going to be used for the podcast. So this is episode 23 of the podcast. So for those of you guys who are just tuning in, listening to the recording, or this is your first time hearing this, go back and listen to the episode 22 to really get a full take on the process of creating, right? So this whole 3-part series is Create, Believe, Conquer. This is something that I created back in 2014, and this is something that I've been using as a strategy for myself and for my clients over the past, 6 years now. So really, and it's interesting the timing of all of this coming as it is now, and I think it's even more valuable when we have something challenging strike to know and have a formula and a process to move through it. So yesterday we talked about creating, really just creating and how to create from a place of possibility instead of from a place of circumstance. Today we're talking about building our belief and how do we build our belief? Because we may get in a state of creation, we may create something, but then we may doubt that it's good. So, I'm sure you've heard of a bunch of stories of artists who they make something, a painting, and they hate it. They just hate it. They're critical of it, and they don't want to put it out there. They're judging it. They're judging themselves. And so I think even if we're not all artists, we all are creators, right? Like we all have the ability to create things. And one of the things that I saw, and I like to use examples from my lifetime and examples maybe from other people's stories that I hear, because we really learn through stories. And when I visited Africa last year in 2019, it was so interesting because I visited the country of Rwanda, and I don't know how many people follow the history of that country, but about 25 years ago, there was a massive genocide here in the US and really all over the place. We didn't really hear about it. It was kind of like they just dealt with it on their ends. But in the aftermath of that, in talking and visiting with young people in that country when I was there for about 10 days, what they chose to focus on was so important. A lot of these people were kids during that time where neighbor turned against neighbor, where they were, there's a lot of brutality. And now these kids are in their are in their 30s, 40s, and they have chosen to move forward with forgiveness, and they have chosen to move forward and say, we are one, we are united as a country, this is what we're choosing. And the reason why I use this as an example is because whatever we believe to be true will be true for us. And it would have been very easy for them to choose to hate their neighbor, to hate that other person, to hate that other tribe that did this to them. And that speaks to levels of consciousness as well, as this was something that was done to me and I'm a victim, or this is something done for me. And we kind of touched on forgiveness on our last call. However, forgiveness permeates through everything that we do, and especially has to do with ourselves and how critically we judge ourselves. So belief has a lot to do with others, right? Like what we believe others think about us, or what we believe others are going to think about us. And we have a fear of what they're going to think about us. But then not only that, it's what we believe to be true about ourselves, how we are judging ourselves. So as we work through the belief process, I'm going to start by just asking a few questions that you can jot down. And this is also going to be something that will be available in an actual PDF format. But 3 questions mainly. What do you believe? What do you believe, and do you repeat to yourself daily? The next one is, what would you need to believe to get a different result or to have a different outcome? And then the last one is, what are you going to choose as your truth? So I'm going to use an example from my life, and I'll probably have a client example as well. What do you believe and repeat daily? I don't think it's a secret because I share this with everyone, but I was in a 9-year long relationship that was not a healthy relationship, that was with a covert narcissist. And, I asked myself from time to time, why was I in that relationship so long? And, there was a lot of reasons that we can break down, but one positive trait that I learned is that by practicing gratitude, you can actually change your situation, right? You can change your perception of the situation. So I practice gratitude for that person every day, even though they had all of these qualities that were not what I wanted in a person. I practice gratitude for what was there each day. Now, some people would say that's extremely unhealthy. And as I look back, we all do our process in our own time, right? And I believe that I needed to go through that process for a reason. So again, instead of believing that I wasted 9 years with this person, I believe that that process happened for me, because I now learn, okay, if you want to stick with something, if you want to build your belief, you journal about it. You write your gratitudes about it. You see all the good things about it. And what happens is your situation, your perception transforms, but then your situation transforms as you transform. So through that process, I was writing all these gratitudes for this person, all these things I thought were great, right? And I was like telling myself that this was good. But as that persisted, I started to change. I started to be more of those qualities that I really wanted to be in a person. As I started to become more of those qualities, I started to tolerate this treatment less and less. I started to speak up for myself. I started to speak up for my values. And then I started to say, you know what? Good, you do have some good qualities about you, but this is really what I'm looking for. Then I started journaling. This is what I believe I'm deserving of. This is what I want. And in that moment, it was the opposite. It was the complete opposite of the person I was with. And my belief was either this person will change into this, because I know this is what I deserve. I know this is what I'm working towards. I know that I believe truly God wants me to be happy and bless me with an amazing relationship. Either this is going to happen and this person will change, or I will change. I will speak up for my values. I will remove myself from that relationship. And then I will have complete clarity on what it is that I want to attract what it is that is destined for me. So a couple things, a couple lessons in that is we are what is going to change during a situation, during a circumstance. We cannot control our circumstances completely. We can only control our own thoughts, feelings, actions, and responses. So in that way, I was channeling and learning and growing what I didn't want. And then I also had this belief in the face of, I can't believe this. I don't think, this is ever going to work out, but I do believe that this other person is out there. It was so interesting because I had no evidence. I had no evidence that that was actually going to happen. And now fast forward to, we're now in April 2020. I am now happily married to somebody who has all those qualities that I was wanting and desiring. So part of this is, what do we believe we deserve? What do we repeat to ourselves daily? And then what would we need to believe to move forward, right? So for me in that situation, I needed to believe that I deserved more, that I was deserving of more, and that my needs, wants, and desires were just as valuable as another person's. And then lastly, what are you going to choose as your truth? And in that situation and scenario for me, I did not want to let go of something. So for a while, my truth was, this is the person, I'm going to stick it out, this is the person, right? Then my truth started to transform into, I'm open to something else shifting. I'm open to something else, just whatever. And then it very much clearly became, this is not the person, and I'm moving on to something else. So what are we going to choose as our truth? We get to decide that. And you know how some days you just wake up and you decide, I'm done believing this any longer. I'm going to choose a new truth. And when we choose a new truth, it sometimes feels hard. It sometimes feels challenging. It sometimes feels false. It sometimes feels like we're leaving something behind. It can feel like grief, or it can feel extremely positive, but maybe extremely unattainable. Maybe extremely, that doesn't feel like it's actually going to happen. But all a belief is something that we repeat to ourselves over and over again until it becomes our truth, until it becomes a belief. So we get to choose what it is that we want to use as our truth. For a lot of time when I was starting off this journey, maybe 12 years ago, I remember sitting on the beach and I was having body image issues, just hating what my body looked like, even though I was fit and in shape. And looking back now, I'm like, wow, I was so in shape then and I still had those beliefs, right? And I sat on the beach and I remember just journaling all the things that I believed were wrong with me as a person. And this all had to do a lot with this relationship too, because that relationship, the situation, the scenario, the circumstance was also mirroring the beliefs I already had about myself. So I was in this relationship. I didn't feel good about myself, but I sat there and I journaled and I wrote out each and every scripture that aligned with my truth that I wanted to believe. It didn't feel real at the time. It felt false. It felt like crap. It didn't feel real. I was like, yeah, okay. But I believe that doing that and knowing that this is what I'm believing, I know it's not serving me, and this is my truth, this is what I'm choosing as my truth, is what's going to move me forward. So not everybody feels a really strong spiritual connection to the Bible. So you can take something that is maybe just very broad and vague. I hear a lot of people saying abundance is our birthright. Abundance is our birthright. Just choosing an affirmation that feels like it could be true. That's all we're at right now, is how can we start to make it feel like it could be true? That's the 1% shift that we want to make. We talked about this a little bit yesterday too, and I want to address this. Fear and belief. Fear and belief. They are going to come into opposition with each other, right? They're kind of two sides to the scenario, the situation. What we believe is going to be tested when we are in a place of fear. So the more we spend time anchoring in that belief, choosing that this is what we're going to believe, choosing that no matter what, in spite of the fear, I'm going to believe this, it's going to feel more anchored and grounded within us when the fear comes, because the fear will come. It may be something big, like what's going on globally right now. It may be something small, like I'm going to go on a Facebook Live for the first time. And we don't necessarily need to compare them, like this one's bigger than this one, because the fear response in our body is the same. It's that same fight or flight response that is going to challenge us and trigger us whenever things come up for us. And what we believe to be true is what we're going to stand on in that time. And it's either going to cause us to run away in fear, or it's going to cause us to be courageous, step and move forward and move towards the fear. I have a chat coming in from Lisa. Yes, like, will I mess a client up? This is really good. I like this. So for those of you guys who are healers, coaches, providers, anybody in this space, we have a tendency to want to think like, I don't want to do wrong by people. And you can even in the same way of being a former personal trainer, you're like, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to train them wrong. However, this is my thought that I hold on to when I'm serving. And this is a similar thought that you can use in the field of physical fitness, or in just reaching out a lending hand whenever you don't know what to say to somebody. Maybe you're just wanting to be somebody's friend. They're going through a loss, like they're going through grieving. They lost a loved one and you don't know what to say and you don't want to say the wrong thing. Just showing up for that person with your intention is enough. It's truly enough to be there for that person. So I have had a coach say, and I think he's the one that wrote the book, The Prosperous Coach. So you can put that down as a resource. He says, if somebody went outside and just every day after work went outside and talked to the lamppost about their day, that would actually help them, right? They're talking about their feelings, they're getting it out, they're feeling heard. That would actually help them. And surely you, as a coach, a provider, a professional, are maybe marginally better than a lamppost. So if you can be marginally better than a lamppost, you can actually serve to help someone, right? So I use that to say, again, we can put ourselves on this pedestal as providers, as coaches. And I think this is across the board in any industry. Don't you think that every cardiac surgeon has that thought of like, I'm opening up this person's chest. I don't want to screw them up, right? As humans, no matter what our profession is, most of us still have enough humility to go, ooh, I don't want to screw this up, right? But this goes into my next point, which is taking the actions builds the confidence. Even if you do screw up, even when you do screw up, because we will all screw up. And I believe doctors know going into it, they're not going to save every patient. And that's an acceptable risk for the job, right? It's an acceptable risk for the job. So either I can serve no one, and I'm just using the doctor as an example because I think that's a huge example of I can serve no one because I'm afraid. So I'm going to let all of these people die, or I'm going to save 20 and lose one person, right? And it's not, again, I'm using like death as an example, which might be pretty harsh, but it's not to denigrate and say that one person's life is not valuable, because it absolutely is. But those 20 people, maybe those people might have been lost as well. So we're able to serve, whether you're a doctor, a healer, and I think a lot in the service industries in terms of life coaching, being a healer or an energy reader or something in the spiritual field, we feel like people know more than us. And there's always going to be people that know more than us. And the beautiful thing about that is there's a client for each of us. There is a client who wants the best of the best, who has 50 years experience, who wants to pay $50,000 for 1 hour of that person's time and who has the ability to do that. There are others that want somebody that's more relatable, that may be closer to their level, that's a few years ahead of them. And what I choose to hold on to is a first grader can teach a kindergartner something, right? They know how to read, and kindergartners are still struggling with that. So to that kindergartner, that first grader is an expert on reading. And I love the example of children as well, because acting like a child, being like a child, just doing it without that judgment, you're just doing it. You don't even know what you don't know, right? Like or first graders don't realize that they don't really have a strong grasp of the human English language yet they're more than willing to help that younger kid, because they're like, oh, I know something and I can teach them and I can help them and I can lend a helping hand. So choosing what to hold on to, choosing what to believe in these times, it completely shifts your perspective, and then it allows you to continue to move forward. So the one thing I have written down here is I was going to make an acronym for believe, but I was like, that's a long acronym. I'm not going to go there. I want to keep it simple. And so as I was starting to break it down, it reminded me of, I kind of shifted the words around, and I came up with be love. And I was like, that's very interesting, because what we believe is going to affect who we are being in that moment. So if we can set aside our personal judgments, our personal limiting beliefs, and go, in this moment, how can I be love to myself? How can I be love to the other person that I'm looking to serve, or to take that action and step up in a bigger way, and to, I don't want to say potentially fail, but I want to say, like, yes, you absolutely are going to fail. If you know that you're stepping into failure, how can you love yourself despite of that? Because if we're only going out into the world to win, we are going to stop ourselves from taking the actions that are actually required to win. And I like to use a very simple example. This is probably overplayed, but when you hear it and you think about it, I think it resonates with you. So I always say what we're doing is we're not trying to be perfectionists. And I thought about making a like a blog post of like how to be perfect, 10 easy steps, like, and kind of like joke about it. But it's not about being perfect, right? It's not about perfection. It's about practicing your potential. So how can you show up, be love each day, and just practice and practice and practice? And have that be your belief of today, I'm going to show up and practice. So using the example of when we first hopped on a bicycle for the first time, I can like vaguely remember being in the backyard of my trailer because I lived in a trailer in 5th grade. I can remember like vaguely being back there, like the hills were wobbly, the grass was everywhere, and I knew I was going to fall. But I got on the bike, kept falling off, got on the bike, kept falling over. But I remember when I would like go for a little bit of time, I'd be like, whoa, like I did it. And so part of building that belief too is rewarding those little processes of getting up, practicing, getting up, practicing. Even though in our mind, we may be going, I want this. This is going to define success for me. This amount of money is going to define success for me. Riding the bike for a mile and being able to do it without training wheels is a success for me. But we're never going to be able to get to that success if we don't celebrate along the way. If we don't rejoice in those little moments of, I didn't fall off for 2 seconds. Yay. Like I did it. I keep getting up. I keep practicing. And also, what does it do for us? It builds resilience. We fall down, we skin our knee. It hurts. It bleeds. There's pain. I never want to negate the fact that we go through real pain, real trauma, real emotional issues, because what does it do? It scabs over. It makes us tougher. Next time we know, oh, I'm going to fall down. It's going to hurt like this. But last time I got through it, I'm going to get through it again. I'm going to keep going because my vision, again, back to the create part, my vision, my values, what it is that I want, how I want to serve in this life is bigger than me falling down, skinning my knee, and having these little failures down the line. So we talked about belief versus fear. We also talked about being love. Again, I'm going to reference back to the vibrational scale of emotions. If you guys are just listening in on this, that is episode 21 or 22. And that is an important place of how we create things. So when we make a decision from a place of fear, typically it ends up having an outcome that is a lower level outcome. What I mean is sometimes fear is there for fight or flight response. We need to make a quick decision. We need to get out of there. We need to shoot back. We need to whatever. In that quick response, we need to make a quick decision and go for it. Maybe financially, we just need to make some quick money. Yes, go for it. But would you agree? Let's say you need to make some quick money and you need to go work at a gas station, or that's what you're doing. That's probably not your long-term strategy, but it's probably your short-term strategy. So know that when you're making decisions from fear, sometimes you got to do it. You got to make quick action and do it right now. But that's not necessarily going to build you up for the future when you're making decisions always based on fear. Because if you go from that job, which was fearful, and then you choose another job that was fearful, and then you keep, like I did that for 10 years. I kept going, I have a degree in biology. I should do this job because it's safe, because it's stable. And then I realized I hated it. It was draining my energy. And I was about to, and I say this like I'm in my 30s, I wasn't about to die. But in my mind, I was like, I'm about to die and not leave anything on this earth of impact because I keep making these decisions based on fear. Go work in a biology laboratory. Go do this because it's safe. Go do this because it's safe. And it's almost like I felt myself aging more quickly when I was not in the flow, when I was not in my purpose, when I was not in alignment, because every day was so hard. Versus when we start to practice, we start to step into what makes us feel good. We start to step into flow. And I know Lisa, who's listening to the call today, she said, I felt like I've been in flow recently because I've been creating. And when we're in flow, we're creating. That is a gift that God wants us to give to this world. So in this time when we're building our belief, It's kind of listening to your intuition as well, creating, and then aligning your energy with what you're creating as you're putting it out into the world. There is a good book out there, and I'm forgetting what it's called at the moment. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote it, and it's about creativity. I don't remember it, the title of it, but I'll put it in the show notes. She talks about acting on that impulse whenever the inspiration comes. Act on the impulse to write the book, act on the impulse to write the post, act on the impulse to whatever it is, put it out there into the world. And she says two things. Number one, that idea needs to be birthed, needs to be gifted, needs to be out into the world, needs to serve people. If you don't do it, that intuition is going to go to somebody else and they're going to do it. So that's not to put you in a place of scarcity. That's just to say that is that still small voice within you, that something needs to come out into this world, and it could be coming through you or it could be coming through the next person. And the belief is usually what stands in our way. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think people would want to hear this from me. Who am I to do this? Why could I do that? So the second thing that she says is, so the first thing is, let me think, I'm going on a third point that I want to add in myself. I'm going to add this in myself right here, then I'll go to the third point. People need to hear it from you in your voice. The way that I coach, I'm not saying anything new. I'm not creating anything new. This Create, Believe, Conquer situation, that is pieces of other things that people have taught me, and I've put it in a way that makes sense for me logically. But it's nothing new. But I know and I trust and I believe that people need to hear it from me in my specific format, the way that I created it in my brain, and I'm able to communicate it to the world. So we do have a gift in being ourselves, our imperfect selves, because some people do not want to see this perfect image of somebody photoshopped on a stage who's a millionaire. Some people cannot connect with that. It's too far for them. So us commoners, us regular people, right? Yes, they need us to stand up and show them we're real. This is where we came from. This is the process that we're doing. And we're growing incrementally, and they can watch us grow. They can watch us rise. Then they can start to see that their own limiting beliefs may be getting in the way. Because what happens when you see somebody on a stage, they're like, oh, well, they must have had money. Oh, they had parents that took care of them. Oh, we just make up these stories about this person on how they probably had the perfect life. But whenever we're in the middle of the process and we can show someone, hey, this is where I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this is where I am now, not like I'm bragging, but I'm celebrating because this is the process and I can help you along this process as well. And then the last piece that Elizabeth Gilbert said was, as soon as you release it, you release the idea, you birth the thing out there. It might be a Facebook post, it might be your book, blog post, video. It's not yours anymore, it's the world's. And so what's so interesting to that is just trust that it needed to be said. It needed to be expressed through you. It was something that, and obviously we're talking about things like we have freedom of speech, but we also want to go, is this helping someone? Is this serving someone? Is this coming from a place of love, right? Be love. So I don't just want to say unfiltered, let's just go out and rant all over the place. So I want to make sure I'm being clear upon that. But once it goes out there, it's now the world's to interpret how it will. And what that also means is it's time for us to set aside the fear of who is going to think what about whatever it is that we create. A lot of times, the things that hold us back from taking the biggest action or even the littlest action is the people who are closest to us. Our friends, our family, our friends that knew us in high school, the church lady down the street, just who is going to think this about me? Whenever that circle is not the circle that you're meant to serve. There are other people out there that need to hear your message, that are literally maybe dying to hear your message. They may be 1 minute, second away from doing something that they can't take back. and they need to hear that message specifically from you in that moment. So in that moment, it doesn't matter what grandma thinks, mom thinks, cousin thinks, ex-boyfriend thinks, high school person you used to go to high school with 30 years ago thinks. It is all about your purpose and who you're here to serve. Now, people listening to this recording may not be serving in that way. They may be working a job. Okay. So how can we build our belief if we're working a normal job, 9 to 5, maybe we're not an entrepreneur? What areas do we need to build belief in? I like to go with body image. I like to go with money. Those are one of the two biggest things that I work with women on. I'm not anybody yet until I weigh this amount. I can't speak on anything yet because I'm still X amount in debt. Those are two beliefs that are tied to something that is external, that we're defining our value based on. We're defining whether we're good enough based on what our title is, how much money we have, how much we weigh, what we look like, how old we are. So anytime we define an external, this is why I can't, and this ties back into yesterday's call, anytime you're fighting for your limitations, check in. Check in. Why am I fighting for my limitations? Why am I choosing to believe this? And I'm going to tap in a little bit on procrastination now, because this has everything to do with belief, and procrastination and perfectionism go hand in hand. I work with a lot of perfectionists. I have a program called Self-Love Perfectionist Project. And the typical thought pattern of a perfectionist is, I'd rather not do it at all if I can't do it right. And somebody might have actually taught you that, right? Like somebody, a well-meaning father figure may have said that. If you're not gonna do it right, don't do it at all. And that may have caused a belief in your brain that I can't do this right, so I'm just not going to do it. So if I can't work out to the level that I'd like to, I'd rather just not. If I can't, and maybe people are giving up in the area of parenting. I just can't be a good parent, so I'm just going to give up. I'm not even going to try anymore. If you always think you're failing and you always think you're not good enough, it's going to cause you to procrastinate or not show up at all, because we're avoiding the pain of having to do the thing and having to do the thing less than perfect. So I have a new belief that you can borrow, that you can use, that you can use for the rest of your life, and you can tailor it to something else if you want to tailor it to something else. And this is kind of funny because my mom's husband says this. He says, good enough is good enough. And he'll just like do it and be done with it. And we kind of joke about it. We kind of make fun of it, but how nice that he gets so much stuff done, because he's like, yeah, good enough is good enough. It looks good. All right, moving on to the next thing. And he spends zero energy on the outcome of whether the flower pot is exactly perfect, right? He just planted the flowers, good, moving on. Now we're going to mow the lawn. And I'm using little examples, but the reason I use little examples is because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're one of those people like I tend to be, which is like, let me show you how to load the dishwasher, how many other ways are we like that in our life, to where let's just let somebody else load the dishwasher. It's okay. They're going to use a little bit of extra water that day, but I'm going to get to experience not being in control of that situation. That's okay. I'm going to free up my energy. Instead of controlling how people load the dishwasher, how about I start to shift my energy into my own belief in myself, creating something, doing something, stepping out, serving someone. So this also has a lot to do with where we put our energy, our beliefs and our energy. Where is that going? Because when we put ourselves out there, building that belief, and I like to talk about entrepreneurs a lot because I have a heart for them. And even like somebody doing network marketing, right? Or somebody selling something on Etsy that they made by hand. All of these things are relevant. Or it could even be, I know a lot of people, they just want to volunteer, but they don't want to go volunteer by themselves because they don't have enough belief and they're not used to doing things by themselves. So it's also, I could be volunteering for something, but I'm not. So therefore I'm not serving these people because I'm feeling insecure about myself. So this can this can show up in so many different facets. The energy that we put out when we are presenting ourselves to the world is going to reflect the energy that we receive back. So let's just use this person who is afraid to volunteer, for example. I'm afraid to volunteer, or I'm afraid to hop on a new video call with people I don't know, or I'm afraid to post in a Facebook group because what are people going to think? Yet all the while we're sitting at home going, well, I wish I had a community. I wish I had better friends. I wish. But because our energy is going, well, people are going to judge me. People are going to judge me. Either we show up in a way that basically attracts judgment to us, right? Like, because if we show up in a way that's like meek and timid and like, where we're fumbling with the camera, and then all of our worst fears will be basically founded whenever we show up on a Facebook Live because we're scared, because we're fumbling. And then we have somebody going, oh yeah, you can't do a Facebook Live, right? So what the energy that we show up with really dictates the energy that we receive back. So let's talk to this person who's shy, who doesn't want to do a Facebook Live, who doesn't want to put themselves out there, and talk about how we can shift a belief that's going to shift the energy, that's then going to shift the action and the outcome that we get. So this person, I would say they probably have one friend in the world. Most people I know, because humans are social creatures, even if you don't have any friends, you probably have one friend in the world or a family member that you could at least ask, hey, I'm going to go on a Facebook Live, or hey, would you hold the camera for me? Or hey, what am I good at talking about? Because everybody is good at something. And then your friend says, you're really good at talking about baking pies. And you go, cool, I'd like to join a group to meet people, to connect with people who bake pies. And I would like to do a video about baking pies. Then all of a sudden, you have your phone set up, you start talking about baking about pies. All of a sudden, you're a powerhouse rock star because you're talking about something you're passionate about. Your energy is coming off as, I'm really passionate about pies. And nobody can really get you down when you're in that energy. Meaning, if somebody comes up there and was like, no, I don't like pies, I like cakes. Like, is it really going to like throw you over the edge when you're like, okay, dude, you like cakes, I like pies. Go to the cake Facebook group. I'm going to make pies over here, right? Because when we're in that energy of like, I'm grounded, this is what I'm doing, this is what I like, this is who I am, we're going to find people who are like us, who either we can coach, we can help, we can assist, or in the same way, we can learn from them, we can be mentored by them, we can be in a community of peers. But I like to set the reminder that we're not as unique as we think we are. Meaning, yes, we are beautifully and wonderfully made creatures, God's creatures. However, there's a lot of us on this planet. And to think that we're so unique that nobody has ever experienced our situation, our thoughts, our feelings, that's actually a very self-centered position to take, of like, nobody can understand what I'm going through. Yes, we can. We're humans. We can. And I just saw this video yesterday, and I bring this up because I like to bring some laughter and joy into this. I saw a video about this, like, it was like a Comic-Con situation of a bunch of people coming around to be fans of My Little Pony, like the little children's cartoon called My Little Pony. And it was videos of grown men, 20s, 30s. They're called bronies, and they're dressed up like little ponies. And I was actually like, that is such a good lesson for us to know, like, even the bronies can come together and find common ground. You wouldn't think there's many grown men that love ponies, My Little Ponies, but there are. So that means the energy that you put out, the actions that you take are going to influence what you receive back. And I don't want to put this all out there, all law of attraction-y, because I don't believe that it's like an eye for an eye. I don't believe that like you do this, you're going to get this to happen. And I certainly don't believe that people who are sick, injured, ill, any of that stuff, I don't believe that they've caused that. But I'm talking about energetically, when you start to put yourself out there and build your belief, who you're surrounded with is always going to be like that. And who you're surrounded with, you start to notice, oh, those people are actually putting those limiting beliefs into me each day. And I'm fighting so hard to overcome my own limiting beliefs, yet I'm still hanging around all these people who keep putting them right back into my pocket, putting them right back into my pocket. So in that way, our energy and our environment is so important when building our belief, because we might step out there and do something great, right? We rode our bike for 2 seconds. But you can think about, if you had that kind of parent that's like, no, you get up. That could have been a negative experience. You were celebrating because you rode your bike for 2 seconds, but that person was like, no, you need to get up and you should have gone farther. So knowing that, we're all somewhat children on the inside still. It's just like that parenting scenario. If we're in a friend group, a peer group, a mentor group, whatever it is that has that energy, it is up to us to remove ourselves, exclude ourselves, take that moment to be alone if that's what it takes. Because just like I talked about in the beginning, when I was leaving that relationship, I had to step out and leave it and step into the unknown, to leave something that I was comfortable with that I knew wasn't serving me into the unknown, to become that person who could stand on my own, who was confident in themselves, who had their own values, who had a vision, so that I could call in that new opportunity for a new relationship. So this has everything to do with when we're stepping out of one belief into a new belief, there's going to be that process of no man's land in the middle that we've got to stand on our own, and we've got to be confident in. I am between beliefs right now. This old belief is saying, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? Why do you think you could do this? Nobody ever did this before in our family. Why do you think you could make this much money? And then on the other side is, you are worthy. You're good enough. Just keep going for it each and every day, one foot in front of the other. It eventually comes. Keep going. Align your energy. Take the actions. And there's a bridge. There's a gap. I like to think of it as, I watch a lot of war movies, and I like to think of it as like the no man land on the front lines where nobody goes, but you're walking through, like Wonder Woman in that movie where she just walks through. And they're like, nobody's ever gone there before. And she's like, watch me. And she goes, right? That imagery of she just keeps going. And as she did that, she had the belief in herself all along, but as you start to take these actions, you start to affect and build the belief of others around you. So if nothing else, becoming successful, taking a risk, reaching out and helping people, showing up for others, not only does it help ourselves be successful, then we become an example of what is able to achieve by others. So when others look at us, they go, wow, I saw her 3-4 years ago. Now look at her. And it's not in a way that's, oh, wow, look at how great she is. It's, I can do that too, because I knew her win. I knew her win this and this and this. And she kept going, and she never gave up, and she kept going, and she kept going, even when her belief was challenged. And I think people think it's like, oh, I just believe in myself now. No, that's not the way it works. It's not the way it works, because you'll believe it in yourself to a certain level. I believe I can make 20 grand. Okay, I made it. Now I'm going to stick here because I don't really believe I can make 40. I don't really believe I can make 100. I don't really believe I can make 500. So this tool goes with us everywhere we go throughout the rest of our life as we continue to up level. We're going to believe in ourselves to a certain level. We're going to get there. We're going to get comfortable there. And then us as humans, we always want that next level. We want that growth, right? This is one of our 6 human needs, like Tony Robbins says, growth and contribution. We're always going to want to go to that next level. It's not bad as long as we're sticking around and saying, I'm grateful for this. I'm proud of myself. I want to bask in this that I've achieved thus far. I want to spend time enjoying this. But we're always going to want to go to that next level. And it's like Joyce Meyer says this all the time, new level, new devil. It's going to show up. It's going to show up and you're going to be like, dang it, I thought I was over this. Well, you were over it to get to the next step. Now you're taking the next step. So we have a new limiting belief to come up with. So this is not a process that is ever done. This is not like, oh, I believe in myself, right? And I like to I use Oprah as an example all the time because she had every reason not to believe in herself. I mean, when she was coming up and first getting on TV, Barbara Walters was the epitome of what a woman news anchor looked like. And Oprah Winfrey looked nothing like Barbara Walters. She did not come from that background. So she approached limiting belief after limiting belief and kept going and kept going and kept going. And I don't know her personal story enough. We're not best friends yet, but I'm sure one day she'll sit down and share this with me. But when she was starting her own network, I am sure that she came up against, oh, I'm going from a TV host to starting my own network. Can I do this? Right? Can I do this? And so even at Oprah level, even at all these people that you see on TV, you're thinking they don't ever have that problem. They're speaking on a stage in front of 50,000 people. They do. They've just practiced so many times that now they're able to ride that bike. It's like they just got on a bigger bike, a fancier bike, right? Because they've been practicing over time. This just came to me. Malcolm Gladwell has a book, I think it's called Outliers, and it talks about the 10,000 hour rule, which is when you've practiced something for 10,000 hours, you now scientifically, like they've basically done studies to say that 10,000 hours makes you an expert. So somebody like Tiger Woods, who's been playing golf since he's been a child, obviously he's an expert because he's been playing longer. If we're just learning to ride the bike, if we're just starting, if we're just going, we have to allow ourselves to fall down and to know we still got our training wheels on. Like, it's okay. Let's not set the example of I'm trying to be Tiger Woods right now, and this is my first time going to the driving range, right? So setting that expectation as we believe, we're going to keep going. We get to define what success means for us. I think one of the biggest downfalls for a lot of us high achievers is we are a high achiever. So we say, I want that. I want that house. I want to be on that magazine. I want to be with this person. I want the best, the best, the best, the best. And then we might achieve something amazing, but it wasn't the best. We're not on the cover of Time magazine yet. And so when we set our sights that big, it's not to say don't set your sights big, but it's also to say, let's set a big one. Let's set a big goal. Let's set a amazing goal, but let's set an everyday. What can I do every day that's going to define success for me? What can I look back on this year that I've done? What can I look back on in this past 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days to say, I am riding that bike every day. I am practicing every day. And someday I might be on the cover of Time magazine. That would be amazing. But even if I die today, the steps that I'm taking along the way, I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to feel happy. Those I'm going to choose to believe, because I guarantee the person who is on Time magazine, they didn't set out to only just be on Time magazine. They did something to get there. They had another passion. They're serving people along the way. They're doing the thing each and every day, one day at a time, working on their belief, taking the action, working on their belief. Then they got on Time, which may have been part of their goal and vision, but that wasn't it. It wasn't just like, I want to be on Time because I have hair. Like I just want to be there. Be it like a lot of people now, the reality TV scene, right? Like, I just want to be famous. But why? But why? Why do we want to do this? And how do we choose to build that belief as we take action over time? Okay, so I'm gonna finish it up with that. I am gonna put a resource up in the show notes, and I'll also put a resource up in this Facebook group. I'm going to start this challenge as well, and Create.Believe.Conquer will be open within the next coming weeks as a 6-week program, and we will really dive deep into that. So you guys can check out the show notes and check that out as well.